Hello, good morning, so welcome to Things to Invest. Talk about investing, finance, and professional development. For today's tips only, the investment talk today would be Ethereum ticker ETH. So it's my second recording of today. With respect to on Friday this afternoon at 3:13 p.m. on Eastern Time, Ethereum current trade $3,319, that about 4.20% so far. With respect to overall crypto market is relatively red today. With respect to Bitcoin down about 2.42%, Ethereum again down about 4.24%, Dogecoin down about 5%, Cardano down about 6%, and with respect to Solana down about 3.64%, while XRP down about 2.01% so far. With respect to the sell-off that we're experiencing so far, in addition to the Friday and the weekend affectation, it seems like there are some news cultivating around, the foreshadow of the SEC, reinforcements or enforcement, if you may, going forward, right? With Gary Gensler putting some, initiatives on structuralizing the compliance infrastructure, with respect to the bills that have been, hearing from the feds, right? Don Byers taking the lead on drafting the crypto bill. That's about like 58 to 59 pages of the comprehensive objective breakdown on what to do and what not to do with respect to crypto assets going forward, right? And also with respect to the Fed's initialization of stable coins, and also with respect to, recently, as we heard, the revisions of the infrastructure bills that, have to incorporate with respect to some compliance structure around crypto assets and the exchange on the commerce side going forward as well. And with Gary Gensler, with his most recent public speech, talking negatively towards crypto assets, right? Calling it scam, calling it fraud, and etc., etc. So it seems like there's a battle, a political battle, if you may, between obviously crypto assets versus the government entities at the moment right now, right? On top of the fact that with respect to the COVID variants news that we've been hearing more, it seems like it's foreshadowing to be, worsening, which can obviously have a direct negative correlations to both the equity side of the house, but also with respect to crypto at the same time. With respect to on the equity side, today it's kind of trending on a sideways fashion, but leaning more of a downward trend, right? Down about 0.42%, down, and with respect to SPY, down about 0.4% respectively, both on NASDAQ and SPY respectively, right? Dow Jones also down about 0.4% as well. So it seems like we had that initial spike in the morning on the equity side across many tech and high growth stocks, and subsequently kind of normalized as the news got broke out, right, and subsequently reversed the trends from there, right? So that's on the macro side. Let's talk about more micro, or more specified towards Ethereum, if you may. Some news are, I would say not a lot of substantive news in terms of like qualitatively and quantitatively. On one news that's quite interesting is more of a trivial one coming up from Bazinga 2 hours ago. Talk about with respect to there are multiple vaccine stocks has been rallying relatively dramatically in the last 3 months, right? Basically dwarfing the growth in a percentage perspective in comparisons to obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, and even Dogecoin, right? Which are, notorious, as Dogecoin for being very volatile and, sustain a relatively strong rally in the recent time frame, right? So it's an interesting one. I wouldn't compare them apples to apples, but in terms of like obviously in internal return ratio perspective, IRR percentage wise, it's definitely, demanding a much higher one, right? Because of the the recent adoptions for the vaccines and obviously the mission criticalness around that as well, right? So with respect to the next one, talk about with respect to from Time Magazine. So this is a new one. We haven't really heard from Time Magazine in a while. So what they talk about is basically an informative article. Talk about how to buy Ethereum, what you should know before investing. So it's a very comprehensive editorial, independent editorial, coming from an author from the Times Magazine, and is a well written one. It's a very comprehensive one talking about the historical, affectation to the areas of improvement and the future adoptions and even the volatility that we might be sustaining going forward and what will be the end goal as well in an objective tactical perspective as well. So the article is relatively well written. It's not really persuasive, nor is it more of a juxtaposition. It's just more of an informative one. So it's definitely worth reading. I always respect the Times Magazine's publications. I think the authors are typically the least in terms of the cognitively biased towards one side of the spectrum. So it's something I appreciate, and it's something that I recommend reading actually. So next one is really come from Decrypt again. 8 hours ago, talk about what is Ethereum 2.0. Why does it matter? So this is another regurgitation news. Talk about the London fork, the transition to the 2.0. What is the value proposition for Ethereum going forward? What has been the transformative, implementations we've done so far? What are some pain points that we've been experiencing so far, and what will be the end goal as well, right? So another interesting one is something that I probably mentioned this morning already. It's good to read, but if you want to just reinforce your knowledge again, feel free to take a read. And Decrypt came out like 8 hours ago. And the other ones are basically news that we've talked about already this morning with respect to the hype of ALGORAND, which is the ALGO which have surged about 150% over the last 30 days. Obviously, astronomical growth in comparisons to even Solana, right? Which we saw that we tested $215 yesterday, right? And also with respect to Cardano, I've been getting some questions from my viewers. Like, what would be the ideal level to buy it right now? So I want to touch on this a little bit before I touch on the technical analysis for Ethereum, because some of my friends here have been asking me. So I want to be obviously, studious and also be diligent and responsive to you guys, right? So it seems like we are selling off right now from the peak of $3.10. And the reason we sold off the $3.10 is comparable to how the Solana momentum looks like, right? Hitting the $215 mark, right? But $3, like technically like the $200 mark if you compare that like apples to apples in terms of the momentum. So we subsequently sold off across the whole crypto market, right? And right now we are basically hovering on a sideways fashion at $2.04 mark, right? In terms of is this really substantive, we're basically consolidating because we have that consolidation on the 19th of August. So back in, a couple weeks ago, right? But in terms of like, is it sustainable, right? I would say with respect to MACD is still, we don't have any curvature at the moment. So the rebound's not really coming yet. We still have more room to run down to. Also, RSI is still in the mid-level, so we're not completely oversold yet. So the ideal level to start buying in would be ideally, and on top of that, you have a gap here. This is a relatively large gap, basically from $2.07 all the way to $2.40, right? So I think an ideal level for you to start dollar cost averaging would be the $1.88, right? But again, the level is not substantive either, right? We do have another gap forming. So ideally for us, will be the $1.45, and then the respective level $1.34, $1.20. And I think we have a likelihood of getting there because we have these mega gaps that needs to be basically filled, right? So that's the quick recap on Cardano's, on the technicals. Hopefully that was helpful. So let's go back to the main topic of discussion. So with respect to Ethereum, comparable to the sell-off we had for across the whole crypto market. Right now, I think we sold down all the way to the $3,214 as a bottom today, and the level we tested before is basically close to the $3,158, right? And the reason we get there is because it's like a relatively substantive level that we've been consolidating on a sideways fashion, right? However, we're kind of getting canceled out right now, despite the kind of slow rebound that's basically driven by public investors. If you look at the volume, it's relatively low, and also on top of the fact we are still in the mid level of the, in terms of like being overbought, being bought or oversold, we're still in the kind of mid range at the moment, and we also don't have no curvature at the moment. We're still curving downward, and we just recently formed the death cross. Right, so the ideal level and the logical level will be starting to buy at obviously the 3,150 because it's the logical level to dollar cost average at, because that's a relatively substantive level. But the real level, because of the fact that we still have some more room to fall down to, will be like the 3,000 and then also the 2,750, 2,450. And as we get down to the 2,750, 2,450, and these are the levels where we basically deplete the RSI. and by then the ball will relatively, you know, be hitting the ground, and we should see a rebound from there. So I think we might want to cool off a little bit, especially with respect to the CPI report that's coming out, I would say next week or so. So we will hear some media affectation, obviously on top of the COVID variants news that we've been hearing so far, and obviously some black wild cards, right, with respect to the Feds on how they're going to be enforcing, you know, collaborating with the SEC on, you know, triangulating how they can structuralize compliance for crypto assets going forward, right, by giving us more transparencies and more privacy protections, which is important for our money, right, our assets, investments. So hopefully this is helpful. I think, you know, again, right, stay within the fundamentals. By looking at the cheat sheet again, we are still at the, you know, I would say in the mid level of anxiety, and I think we should be enduring some sideways fashion. You know, corrections are never really gonna be that prompt. You don't just sell off one straight line, right? Unless it's a manipulations, which we saw like 2 days ago, right, when we crashed. Not crash, like more correction, right? But it's a sharp one, so it felt like a crash. But and that was a normal thing because it was basically the breaking of the complacency stage, right? And now we are gonna be, you know, testing our patient again, anxiety again, and then next thing you know, denial, and then panic, and then recuperate and revive the cycle again to get to the hopefully the all-time high by next year at this time again, right? And I think the cycle should, you know, technically be, you know, occurring in that sort of cadence going forward. And I think it makes sense logically. And logically, with respect to entry price, for me again, right, knowing the fact that I do have a relatively sizable position right now, I've been just waiting on the sideline, cooling off, right, waiting for the best opportunity to pray, right. And I think 3,000, 2,750, 2,450 would technically be the bottom, and I will wait around these levels, right, like the mid 2,000s. But if you bought in now, if you bought in recently at the 4,000, just hold, right? You did what you could, you know. You did the logical thing at the time for yourself, you know, because you wanted to get rid of that formal feelings, and I get it. But if you believe in long term, who cares, right? Just buy and hold for a long term. Eventually, you get above these levels, right? And I think 12 months from now should get close to about $10,000, right? So hopefully this is helpful. So I think this is my last video for this for Friday, and hopefully you guys have a great rest of the Friday, and I look forward to seeing you guys during the weekend coming. I should have a morning updates tomorrow on the Eastern time, obviously. But really appreciate you, and stay tuned for this. Come up. Take care. Bye.